We're in the ocean today, guys. About 22 knots blowing from the northeast. I thought I'd come out here just because many of you are going to have plans, or you're going to have dreams of going offshore, maybe a fishing trip, maybe an offshore adventure, summer holiday, whatever. That's up to you. So I want to show you that it's possible. So let's get going and do it. We are just drifting around, a little bit of wind chop at the moment. So she's 4.6 tonne of boat, light ship. We got the twin 300 horsepower Mercuries on this boat, 800 litre fuel capacity, 2 water tanks of 160 and I think it was 100, so about 260 litres of water. So by the time you load a boat like this up, it's going to be in the region of 6 tonnes. Just remember, we're on a 3-cabin boat. This is a proper family boat, so you can do all sorts of things on this boat. If you're interested in a walkthrough on this boat, a really detailed walkthrough, follow the link. I'll pop that up on the screen now and I'll leave that in the description below. That is a separate video to this one. Dan Jones is my name. Welcome to Dan's Boat Life. G'day, hope you're doing well. Hope you're having a great day. I am. Let's do this. Alrighty, as I said, 300 horsepower. It comes standard with the 225s. Let's just get the boat moving. Got the waves coming behind me. So going into the moderate chop as we did before, which was more inshore conditions, it's quite a comfortable boat going into the waves. Once we exited the harbour, we're in the ocean, we were getting waves up and over the bow, so you've got to be using the windscreen wipers and close those windows. But in anything moderate to inshore and normal waves, totally fine. So now I'm just sitting on about 4,100 revs. I'm getting a speed return of 18 knots to 4,200 revs, and my fuel flow is sitting on 39 litres per side at that speed. Bearing in mind, these are currently offshore conditions, downwind. We've got a bit of swell. We've got a metre plus of swell just rolling in the heads here, and the wind chop is building up behind us. Going to open that soon to get some air in. So I'm just going to maintain these sensible speeds for the time being until we get into the flat water. Keep watching, because when we do get into the flat water, we're going to open this baby right up and see what she's capable of doing at a higher speed and the full speed, as you would expect. But yeah, motion's comfortable. I feel myself just wanting to sit or stay at the seated position now. I don't see any need to stand up. The visibility is great. I do notice the bow doesn't appear to be a very high bow on this boat. She seems to sit quite low. So for a short bloke like me of 5'7" stature, sitting at this seat, I've got really good visibility so far all the time. So I'm just going to turn the boat to starboard. We'll just take these waves on the starboard aft quarter for a little bit. We'll just feel that out. And I've just brought the speed up to 4,300 revs there. I'm getting a speed return of 21 knots. The motion feels good. You know, if you were new to the whole offshore environment, you're going to feel comfortable, particularly going downwind. Clearly you pick your days whenever you're going out in the ocean, but that's the benefit of having a fast powerboat like this one, outboard powered, because you know, if you know the wind is coming up in the afternoon, well then go in the morning. Get to your destination, you're going to be going at speed, you're going to be doing 20 knots plus in the ocean. You could easily sit on higher speeds before the wind comes up, and then if you need to run home in the afternoon, for example, do it when the wind's behind you. So those are the sort of strategies you want to learn when you are getting into a little bit of offshore motoring that are just going to benefit you. But so far, this feels good. This feels good. Okay, so a little bit of traffic. Just going to take the boat around South Head here, and I'm going to start going up through the speed range. I'm just going to talk to you about what's happening. So we don't have trim tabs, we have zip wakes on this boat. So instead of flaps on the back of the hull, similar to ailerons on a plane. What we have are deflectors, so they deflect the wash like that, and they deploy and retract. I currently have them in auto mode, so if you just want to focus on the driving, like in a scenario right now where we've got some waves, we've got some traffic, we've got some objects that we want to avoid, it's basically got an electronic gyro. It senses the attitude of the boat and it does the auto trim, so it controls this movement and this movement for you quite well. So I would actually just leave it on auto. It's working well for this size and weight of boat. We'll turn it off in manual maybe later on and just see if that makes any difference. Okay, now the water is starting to flatten out. I'm increasing my revs to from 4,300, which is giving me 25 knots and 46 litre fuel flow per side. I'm going to take that up to 4,500. Actually, I hit 4.6 already, so let me just back that off a little bit. Okay, so 4.6, 28 knots. All right, this feels like a pretty fast cruise on this boat. I'm just going to give it a little bit of, I've just given it a few degrees of engine trim up, and she's sitting on 28 knots. We still have some chop, but I'm getting 53 litres, actually about, call that 50 because the other one's registering at 48. So about 100 litres in total for this speed return. Now let's speed her up a bit. Okay, I'm now seeing 4,800 revs. I've got 30 knots. I'm in the same trim setting. The auto zip wakes have completely retracted themselves, so it knows that I'm going fast. My fuel flow is at 60 litres a side, and I'm getting a speed return of 30 knots. Let's go wide open throttle. It's not flat water, so it's not going to be a true representation, but I'm going to just give it a little bit more of a trim up. She feels a little bit more lively now, but quite controllable. You know, this is not a crazy boat in terms of her performance, and nor would I expect it to be. But I'm getting 36 knots there. Give it another little trim up, and I think we should see a bit more. 36, 36, and 37 knots, 5,700 revs, 85 litres a side. One more trim up, just see if that does anything. And 37, probably 38 knots in flat water, but we are clearly not in flat water. So before these boats approach us, I'm actually just going to do a hard right, all clear around. I've backed my speed off to 27 knots now, which feels like our fast cruise, and we're actually going to take these waves on the beam for a sec, so just have a listen. You'll probably hear a few bumps and bangs, as I would expect you would, and we'll just settle that into a sensible speed. At 26 knots, the engine noises really settle down at that speed, and that feels really good. So I'm now taking the wind chop directly on my starboard beam. Just listen to that. And now I'm just going to change that angle a little bit more, and we'll go more into the breeze, just on a 45 degree angle. So we're now going to see a little bit more bow acceleration. That means up and down, like that is what I'm talking about. But I mean, guys, this feels good. Apart from it being 30 degrees in here because it's a February day and it's the middle of summer, this is comfortable. You can sit back. This boat's going to look after you. You can stand up quite easily. That's great, actually. Yes, I would find myself doing that definitely when I'm in a parking scenario pulling into a marina. We'll do that later in the video. But that's great. So just sitting on that, I'm now at 22 knots, going upwind, 22 knots of breeze over the decks and 22 knots of forward momentum. I'm actually not seeing too much wash, it's parting, but it is still throwing water up and around, and I would expect that. We're on a 3-cabin boat. You know, you could have 4 kids. Who has 4 kids these days? But if you had 4 kids, you could accommodate them on this boat. Oh my God, imagine having 4 kids, you'd be exhausted. You'd need 2 boats. Anyway, so just coming off the plane there, 17 knots, 15 knots, dissipating my speed now, trimming the engines back down, zip wakes are automatically doing their thing. Just let that wave behind me dissipate. So what we'll do now, we'll go somewhere a little bit calmer and demonstrate the close quarters manoeuvring of this boat. Okay, so we've come to a calmer area of the harbour. It's nice to open these windows and doors in this heat. You obviously can do that once you going downwind or come inshore again. I'm just going to demonstrate to you some close quarters manoeuvrability aspects of this boat, because there's some really great things. This opening door being one of them. So obviously you're going to favour the starboard side when you're coming alongside, but we have options. So we have a bow thruster, which is what a lot of you would be used to, and we've got the transverse thrust as an option. So I'll just do that. I've got my engine centred, and I have one in forward, one in reverse. And if you're ever confused about how to do this, just think your shoulders. How would my body move if I wanted to turn to the right and translate that movement into throttle control? So I'll just do that in a little bit more of a controlled manner. I do have some wind here, but okay, let's see how she behaves. Yeah, this is fine. Plenty of power. I'll just slow it down now. What I'll do is I'll go upwind and I'll just simulate coming alongside to a dock. We won't actually touch the dock. So what that tells me is the position of the motors and the design of the hull allows us to use transverse thrust to great advantage. I'll just do it again. That's even going into the wind, and that's fine. All right, let's actually try the bow thruster. How powerful is that? Powerful enough. I wouldn't say it's the most powerful bow thruster I've ever. It's just adequate, so that's fine. But what we also have is this joystick. So if you don't know how to do all this transverse thrust stuff, you can actually just, with your throttle hand, go over to the joystick like this and just operate it. So now I'm just swiveling it. There we go. So I can turn it like this or this, and that will actually just turn the boat on a dime. I can go forward and back, and it will drive it like a normal throttle would, but I can also side slip it. So if I want to move the boat sideways, like I am doing now, in a marina scenario, this might be quite useful to you if you haven't operated a boat before, because it just takes all the thinking and the mental calculation required. It just takes it out essentially, and it just does it for you. So hopefully you can see on the drone that we've just slid the boat sideways in the direction of the dock. I'm not going to touch the dock because it's a bit of an old rickety old dock there, but simulating picking up some friends, that's essentially what you do. Now if you're boarding people on and off the boat, you have three options. You can get them on and off the bow. Notice that there is a bow ladder up the front there, so that's indicating we can come into shallow water. We've only got about 70 centimetres of draft from memory on this boat, so you can get those engines up and come in quite shallow on this boat and put a stern anchor out and board people from the bow. So that's one option. You can come up alongside. I would favour the starboard side for obvious reasons. The door is on the starboard side. Now stepping out, we got one step, handhold, and heaps of room. So that's a decent size opening just there. So even if you're quite a tall bloke, yes, you're going to have to duck your head down, but you've got enough space. Some other boats I've tested, these doors are considerably smaller, so that might just make it a little bit more awkward. Another thing, with that seat all the way back and in the up position, the backrest in the up position, I assume it doesn't move, but maybe it does. We'll find out in the walkthrough, separate video. I can see the direction of the motors, so there's no it's just immediate feedback. A lot of these boats with this design, when you slide the seat back, the engines disappear, and that's a little bit annoying if you're trying to drive the boat in the traditional manner and do what I'm doing right now, because you don't know which way the engines are facing. So just a little trick. And obviously the other place you can board people on and off this boat is the transom. We've got two transom steps there, really easy. Side opening door, forgot about that. On the starboard side, very logical, even better for grandma. She won't have to sling her legs over the side. So yeah, this is great. So yeah, it's pretty good, guys. Now, if you like this content, if you find it valuable, subscribe, give us a like, maybe share it with a mate, support my Patreon. I would appreciate that. If you want to compare this boat with a valid competitor, follow this link coming up on the screen right now.